Hey, what's up, everybody? Today we have a lot of audio issues, so I'm recording this through Streamlabs OBS. So I don't know if anybody will notice it, but it's going to be an MP4 file, and it it was just a big hassle. Like we're recording this way later than we had. Like we started. I got on my computer at 9 or 9:30 ish, and it's already 10:20 over here in Central uh, time zone in the U.S. of A. So anyway, sorry about all that. Uh, you know who we are. Ed Tama 23 and my co-host.
Mean Mug wrapping it up from the Kaze-kan podcast.
Yeah, we decided
We
to.
had to, yeah, like he said, we had to hook this rear rig up so bad just to get it the way we
Oh,
want it.
it was a
Because every
mess.
time we try to record the episodes prior, we had to set it up, but it's like, no, we're solving one of our audio problems.
Yeah, and I tested the recording and it sounds pretty decent. Like it looked decent, but we'll let you decide that. Anyway, that's enough of all that. Let's just why don't you bring up any the first topic you wanted to talk to me about, Mug.
Yeah, what can I say? I mean, to our audience who listen, thank you.
The one
But I
percent.
got this question for y'all. Well, small handful for that actually listen. I know without a doubt some some of you have an alliance to a manufacturer of choice.
Uh oh.
Like say for instance, it can be Microsoft, PlayStation, Nintendo, or the PC elitist. But it has to be one of them, or in my case, platform. Don't care.
The worst kind of people. Can't trust them.
Yeah, because apparently we can't just enjoy our games now, can we?
I don't remember. It was the Futurama quote, but it was with, with your enemies. It's one thing. You know what side they're on. But the people from Planet Mutual, you just can't. It's weird how somebody that wants to be on neither side is always the worst one. Like I'm the kind of guy that will complain, I argue, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it's no big deal. Like for me, I've always leaned towards PC and PlayStation. Nintendo being the second. I've stayed away from the Xbox console with the exception of the original OG one from 2004 and 6, the really old one. Mostly because of the exclusive games on there. Like they really went all out with the first one. 360 was okay, but it was never my cup of tea. Of course, that's not.
Yeah. I mean, in my
Ugh,
case, it would have
sorry
to
about that.
be pretty much if you have a game that I'm interested in, I don't care what platform what it's on. I want to play it. I mean, the only platform that I wholeheartedly over from time to times would have to be the mobile division, like the Candy Crushes, the Angry Birds, that stuff. But that if it was on any other platform, whether it be Microsoft, PlayStation, Nintendo, or on the PC platform, I'm for it. But
Yeah,
here's the thing: you may a lot of people may like their choice of platform, but that doesn't mean that their platform can't be criticized.
yeah,
Now, before I even get started, no, I don't really care about the console war that people are still fighting to this day of which form of plastic is better.
yeah. At this point, it's kind of like a pointless war because at the end of the day, the one that's gonna reign supreme, and not saying it for like I'm pro PC, but it's gonna be PC because the only thing you really need to do is upgrade it. If unless of course
Uh,
you bought a pre-built.
say PC platform got its problem. Stop typing right now. I know you typing that paragraph, but stop. Hear me out on this criticism.
The one person who listens to the podcast is typing.
You know who you are. So
He's our only fan. You don't want to lose him.
so getting bad back to this point. PC has a problem to where we got too many stores.
It's a
I mean, how
it's,
many? We got Steam, we got
and
Origin,
recently
Good Old Games.
Epic has recently released one, their own store.
I mean, who's to say Disney won't make them a Play Store soon?
No, actually, to date this podcast, recently I heard some news that Disney is okay with the way EA is treating their Star Wars IP because Disney says themselves that they don't really know anything about games. That makes sense. You know, they rarely release anything, with the exception of Kingdom Hearts and any Star Wars IPs because of EA. And since their standards of video games are so low, to them, EA doing whatever they've done recently with the Star Wars franchise is pretty much like, oh, that's not so bad, because they don't know, like they're oblivious to the video game market. But
Yeah, but yeah, that's a common gripe. But
oh,
everyone has their own form of choice, and there's nothing wrong with the choices
sorry,
that you decide to make.
my point was is that since Disney doesn't know anything about video games, I don't think they're going to step into a market of making their own platform to distribute games. If anything, they're going to do something to distribute their already established films, like be another Netflix and Hulu. Sorry, that was my point. I lost my train of thought right there. This night is bad. This whole audio thing's got me messed up.
Yeah,
Segueing into, I
but go,
guessing you were going to crack down on a
yeah,
specific company.
yeah. I was about to. So I don't need to say anything about Microsoft. Microsoft was taking enough else for this generation.
From themselves too,
PlayStation,
you know.
PlayStation, they got something going on for now until they drop the ball again, and then
Yeah.
people are either gonna shift to Microsoft soft
Oh,
or well, yeah.
if
I wouldn't even say Nintendo because as much as I love Nintendo, we have a problem.
yeah, and also like I don't I prefer the Sony thing you're talking about. They're cracking down on more looter content. Like recently, Senran Kagura has a some content removed from the PlayStation version, but will be on the Steam version because there's an allegation that Sony is going to have somebody do quality control on Japanese games from being too either erotic or lewd. And another example of that was
Ain't that
Nekopar.
why we got the rating system though?
Yeah, but here's the thing: Nekoparo was rated E on PS4, but it's still
Which we
rated.
talked about that before, but that's just stupid because
Yeah,
what's the point if everything is just censored out of oblivion?
yeah, and I think this is, I think there's a reason behind that. But like I was gonna say, is Nintendo has a lot more games, a lot more M-rated games. Their ratings, they're not literally thinking about the children. They're more like the open market. Because I saw a bunch of indie games, regardless of the rating, just on the Switch store alone. You know, so the Nintendo has really loosened up from the Wii U generation, but they have to. They have to listen to that core audience that they abandoned since the Wii. You know, there's a lot of hardcore gamers on the Switch,
But
but
that comes to the issue that I'm trying to bring up tonight. So you have, I'm just gonna say, well, you have two types of hardcore fans. The true, well, I wouldn't even say true hardcore fan. I'd just say the you have the the Nintendo fans that just want Nintendo to succeed.
And that's not a
But
bad thing. That's not intention. That's not an inherently a bad thing.
and when you want them to do right, you have to criticize them. But on the opposite end, you have people, or should I say that the side of the fandom that they have the same sentiment, but they're on this delusional thing to where anything Nintendo does, it can never be wrong. And even if you try to have a rational discussion with them, they'll accuse you of being a hater or some type of fanboy, whether you're an Xbox fanboy, you're a PlayStation fanboy, or you're a PC elitist, just for actually giving an honest criticism about the current issues that Nintendo have.
Yeah,
Now, are they doing better with the Switch? Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
but is the Switch like a perfect console? No,
No,
because what is it? 2019, and we still don't have. Does any just a date how old? Do you remember when Xbox Live came out?
yeah, it was when the I don't remember exactly. I just remember Halo 2 was a thing, and then people were playing online. It was kind of a
What
new.
was it? 2000,
What is it? No, no, it wasn't that early.
2000 or 2002?
The original OG debuted around 2003. I want to say 2000. I felt like well, for me it debuted in 2004 because that's the most time I remember the Xbox OG being a thing. But don't quote me on that. I'm not saying it came out in 2004 because 2 years later, the Xbox 360 would have came out. So I want to say 2002 to 2003. Yeah, you're right.
So you telling me now how many years is that to 2019? All those years, and Nintendo, you
17 years.
still haven't made a proper party function. I mean, hell, the party system ain't perfect on PlayStation, but if I want to hop on a party, I can hop on a party,
Oh yeah.
subscription or not.
Hey, I never thought I would use the party system in the PS4. A lot of the sharing stuff and the streaming stuff, I thought it was eh, but in the
It's
long run, it ends
but
up
it
being the
works.
most convenient thing. Like I was streaming the other night about Dream Drop Distance, but the thing is that you can just certain games you can just stream by just pressing a button and it does it everything. And I understand the quality is not as good as using Twitch and Streamlabs on PC, and then but either way, bitrate's gonna affect it when you're streaming anyway. So the quality of the game, is gonna be it really just you can have the best PC when you're streaming. The bitrate on the video is gonna like I've seen somebody stream Hat in Time and the final level. Oh, it's a good looking level, but on stream it's just terrible because of all the stuff going around.
Now, when if I were to tell that to the delusional fan, they would be like, "But me, Mug, why we have better avenues. We can just use Discord, or we could just use our phone. It's
Yeah,
more
but if that's the
convenient."
case, if why not just have? I understand maybe like PlayStation doesn't have one and Xbox doesn't have one because they have their own party system installed. Like you can just invite people to a party, you talk to each other, you can even record it if you know what you're doing. And but for
The
the
thing
Switch, it
is, you
has
expect
nothing.
me to pay for a yearly subscription, sir, and you can't even get basic functionality correct in 2019.
Yeah, I think like for me, what made me upset, not necessarily like ooh how dare they, but like when Splatoon 2 was announced and they were like trying to
I mean,
emphasize
you might as well
the
be trying to tell me I don't. It's like, oh, you don't need a windshield wiper on your car. You can just use a towel.
yeah,
Sure,
it does yeah, that's
because that works, right?
um but like remember when Splatoon 2 they said use the Nintendo app on your phone, connect it to the headphone device and then sync it to your Switch, and it's just like, I know people are like, well, why don't you just use Discord again? Use Discord and other software, and it's like that's not the point. If if I can get on the Xbox or a PS4 or PC, join a party without having to use a different device, I'm not seeing. Again, somebody's gonna say, "Well, Nintendo, was not really ever focused on multiplayer or online." So when they do it
No,
like
you can't
this,
say they're not focused on multiplayer because why? Why we have Splatoon?
I mean, like online, I'm most like when they say, "Well, online was never really their strongest point." Yeah, it's not their strongest point, but it needs to be because in the long run, that's what people are going to be focusing on. Like, what are they going to do with their new console? Like, it it's so weird that there's so many games that
But we can continue. We can continue to make our point.
yeah.
But this is what I like to refer as the Nintendo bias, to where anyone else, if they weren't to do what's expected, then they would get a bad backlash full of pitchforks and whatnot.
Mhm.
But if Nintendo does it, then no, no. Nintendo was all right. They do stuff differently.
Yeah, the thing is so it's their quality of games that make up for whenever they do something bad. Overall, I just come to play the games. Isn't that what matters? Like that's what they do. They like kind of make it seem like you hate video games in order to be like, "Oh, why are you being so bad? It's just video games." Well, it's just like because you get mad at other companies. And who's talking about other companies? Like they always try to like, and it's like when you bring up Nintendo in a conversation about companies doing something bad, it's like, "Whoa, who brought up Nintendo? We weren't talking about." Yeah, well, we were talking about video games. Nintendo makes games. But it's always like the backpedaling and whatever. Everybody does it. The thing is, for me, Nintendo with the Wii U was probably at their lowest. For me, like I had almost no respect for how they treated the consoles, the game, and their user base. And it's like they disrespected Nintendo disrespects their user base a lot. It's just that it doesn't do it enough compared to like where Sony and Microsoft does is by far the worst when it comes to exploiting their fans. Nintendo kind of does like a cheeky jab where it almost like, well, it was done at a comedic play, like the Robot Chicken E3 presentation with, "Come on, Reggie, bring us Mother 3," and he like eats a fire flower and burns the dude, and it's just like, okay, so a game that people have been wanting, who were we willing to put out money for this game, to they want to officially support it because there's no official localization, and it's like, lol, nope, and it's kind of like a big joke to like not do it, and it's like they don't understand that. Well, what if all the controversial stuff in it, like the Magypsies, and just there's like a lot of stuff in Mother 3 that in all like Wii U Nintendo would have been like, no, they not gonna. There's a lot of adult themes, but it's like you got to understand, people grow up, the fan base grows up. Like imagine the people playing Mother 3, they're not just like a bunch of kids, because the Earthbound and Mother, the series, has been around for years. It's on its 30th anniversary. So, treat the fan base like the adults that they are, because the majority of them are adults who grew up with the series, and any kids that get into it are probably because influenced by adults because of the cult phenomenon. And stuff, when they do stuff like that, when they don't localize games because it's like, oh, we can't, I can understand certain games not because it has that weird, like, it's more of a Japanese oriented game, like there's too many stuff. I can understand somebody saying that, but it's a game where people are aware of it. Like the West is fully aware of this game. It's like the Tales
And
of
again,
series. Like,
you make a point to give Nintendo a credit to criticize them essentially. But how much money you want to bet somewhere anyone who is among the delusional Nintendo fans, they will still try to disagree with what we have to say. Just because, pretty much, they're on the mindset you can't disagree with Nintendo. Nintendo is just always right.
It'll be people, and depend whether or not they keep it to themselves. That's different. It's okay if you.
They don't keep it to themselves. I can tell you that frankly, because I guarantee you, anyone who actually talks, here they come,
Yeah.
and then
Eh,
they'll just say, I can make the argument that they also had a hand why the Wii U failed like it did.
oh, what's funny though about some of these fans? I love how the Wii U was supposedly the go-to console to play when the Xbox One and the PS4 and the Wii U were still out. But now that the Switch is out, nobody cares about the Wii U, and everyone's like, "Can we just admit how much this console failed?" Like, one minute it's the best console to have. It's gonna have Breath of the Wild. It's gonna have all these great games on it. Then the Switch comes out, and then everyone forgets about it. Most people bought the Wii U for Smash,
Yep.
and like all the games on it that are not bad, but they just did weird things like Fatal Frame. Fatal Frame's an interesting series for me, and
I
it's an
mean,
M-rated
besides the
game.
fact that they branded the system like they did, there was no market push for the Wii U. But at the time, people still were trying to say, "Oh, nothing's wrong with the Wii U. Why are you being a hater?" But then want to turn around and say that, "Oh, Wii U's the best console," and like you said, the Switch comes out like, "Oh, the Switch is the best console," but
Everybody's Wii U's collecting dust right now.
not mine.
I
My
don't.
modded Smash, baby.
Yeah, for me, it's to play Wii games that I own. I still have Xenoblade Chronicles. I need to get back on that. And you see, like Nintendo has, like, again, no doubt. Like when it comes to certain games being released, sometimes like Nintendo knocks it out of the park. But most of the games that people tell me that's recommended, like Mario and Zelda, those are given. And even the fans hate each other about that. Like nobody can like Zelda. Everybody's gonna have the problem with it. Everyone's gonna like. There's always like so the Nintendo fandom. With all the despite all the rabid fans who support Nintendo no matter what, they also just fight amongst themselves about these nostalgia games. But that's a whole different can of worms. It's just for me. I was always the kid. I was a weird kid. I was the Sega kid. I had Sonic and Knuckles 3 on PC because I didn't have a Sega Genesis. My cousin had a Saturn. It was like out of everybody I knew who owned like a Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, I knew a cousin who owned a Saturn. He owned a PlayStation 1 too, but he also owned a Saturn.
I was more lucky though. It's like I'll have the Genesis, and my brother would have the Super, and it'd be like that. He would have the PlayStation 2, I would have the GameCube, and so on.
Yeah, and speaking as a like I'm a Sega kid to the heart. Like I love Sega games, but oh man, Sega paid the ultimate price. They could have been like if they did it right, they probably would have been the company that you refer like it wouldn't have been PlayStation or Microsoft. It would have been Sega, maybe Sony, but maybe. But in a way, Sony was only pushed to make a console to beat the Nintendo because they had a falling out with the Philips CDI. I mean the Nintendo and Sony were supposed to make a hybrid Sony Nintendo 64 that played disc games.
But because Nintendo didn't have a monopoly on CD, and oh no, look, the CD is failing. We have to make it a Japanese exclusive thing because they'll never take off. It's
Oh
like, no, you just wanted a monopoly of cartridges.
yeah, well
That's it.
and the thing was is that when they teamed up with Philips on the side instead of Sony. They were saying we're going to do it with Sony, but they ended up partnering up with the Philips. But the Philips was also making their own console, the CDI. And with the deal that they had with Nintendo, they were able to publish two games with Nintendo characters on their exclusive console. The Zelda CDI and the Hotel Mario, those infamous ones with the cutscenes. But so because of that, Sony made their own game console, and the CDI failed, and Nintendo's disk drive failed because it never pretty much went. It even failed when it was in Japan. I don't think it only sold like four. It sold less than 20 copies. I think that's how bad it was. I, but the thing was Nintendo was with cartridges is that they thought you're right. They thought it was just going to be a thing that was going to go on forever. But third-party companies like Square Enix, who knew that the cartridges were too small to make their games, especially for the future projects, they moved over to Sony. And with if Nintendo played their card right, Final Fantasy VII would have been on the Nintendo 64, and it would have been a revolutionary game, and the Sony wouldn't have been in the market, and we would have all Nintendo would have been the kings that they are. But thing is that no matter what company, you're not safe from your own ego. There have times like Sony was the king of the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube generation. It's PS2 is the highest selling console. The PS1 technically dominated the N64 era, but the Nintendo 64 was still popular. It's just saying over in time, CDs were the one thing and cartridges on the way out. And despite all the good games that people remember on the 64, I don't think it could. I don't think it could. It didn't go down without a fight. The one who lost that race was Sega. So
Yep.
there's always a loser. Sega was the loser with the Saturn and the Dreamcast. My uncle owned a Dreamcast. I have the Dreamcast. It's a nice console. I like it.
I need me a video converter from HDMI. But fast forwarding back to today,
Yeah, we're going
the
off track.
Switch was successful solely because the criticism for the fans of Nintendo that want Nintendo to succeed and whatnot. It's like, okay, we like the concept of the Wii U. How about you make it to where we can actually take it around farther than a certain feet? Okay, that's how we got the Switch to where it is today, where we can take it anywhere, or if we want to leave it at home dock, we can leave it at home dock.
Yep.
Okay, criticism, they took it and did something with it. Okay, the Wii U had a lack of party support. Period.
The Switch
The
blows it out of the water alone with just even the early release.
because who would ever think that Doom Eternal would be on the Switch or Mortal Kombat 11?
I mean, I would personally, I won't buy those games on the Switch. But hey, if you have a Switch and that's all you have, and you want to play those games, that's the best way
On
to
the
do it.
go, it works.
Yeah. For me, the Switch is one. There's a lot of games. Like it's surprising how many games I have that are actually original and exclusive to the Switch. It's a
Lots of ports.
Yeah, a lot of ports, but honestly, I don't the my library, well technically it's mine and my brother's library of Switch games is is not really made up of ports, but most games that are coming out on the Switch were games that were previously on the Wii U or last gen consoles or a PC game with everything on it, which is fine. Um it's no different from the PS4 and the Xbox One getting ports because technically they get ports too. The only difference is that Nintendo's exclusive games, like in-house party ones, that's what everyone goes for. Mario Odyssey, Smash Brothers, Breath of the Wild. Those three games alone pretty much dominate the market. No game that Sony or Microsoft has or will make is going to top those. Like the Switch came out swinging in the blades of glory, and what
And
well,
it's doing good. It's just the for Nintendo to continue to improve. It's not to say that you need to bust Nintendo's balls all the time. It's like no, it's just if Nintendo does something to where they can get criticized for, don't try to pretend that there's nothing wrong and just say, ah, okay. And what I'm referring to is Metroid Prime 4.
oh yeah,
So what do I say about Metroid Prime or the Metroid series?
my
I mean,
brother,
I love it.
yeah,
It's like my favorite had to be Fusion, pretty much.
yeah. For me, I'm not a big Metroid fan. My brother is the big Metroid. He's played all the games. He has, you know, I should get him into AM2R. But I think maybe his laptop could
Yes.
probably handle it. But he doesn't have a big beefy computer. I don't think you need a
Ah,
beefy
you can run it
computer.
on a tablet. That's how like it really don't take anything to run.
Yeah, but I was just saying he's he's the big Metroid fan, and I think he was. I haven't really talked to him about it, but I don't think he would. He personally doesn't care. I don't, if the game gets delayed. But it's not
But
like he was
is
interested into the production of it anyway. He's just if the game comes out, he probably will buy it. Um,
but my issue is the fact that when Nintendo says pretty much, I'm paraphrasing, but we didn't do anything with Metroid, and we don't like where it's going, so we're just gonna delay it again. And everyone's giving Nintendo a pat on the back. It's like, congratulations, you told me that you weren't doing anything. It's like that's being transparent. I'm thinking
mm,
to myself, wait a minute. So when Square Enix delays a game, you blow them up.
no, yeah, yeah, no,
When EA Rockstar also delays a game, you get mad and you put the fire underneath them and say what, and
well, I
you
wasn't
you know the
mad.
whole spiel.
Yeah,
So why the double standard to where Nintendo gets a pass? That makes no sense.
I think.
I mean, because if you can't,
We,
the thing is, if you can't get mad at Nintendo for this delay, then don't get mad at EA or any other companies for delaying their products. I mean,
yeah,
that's fair.
for
Now
me,
you can say, but Behemoth, they did this, and this, but a
uh,
delay is a delay.
yeah, I want to say for me on the whole Metroid Prime 4 situation, um, honestly, when the announcement, when it was just a title drop, I already knew they don't have anything. They just like, let's just make a quick title drop and just give it out there. Let's just make sure that people know that because let's be honest, when Metroid Prime, what was that one on the 3DS where you play as those multiplayer? It was that multiplayer co-op game. What was that one called? Freedom. It was like Freedom Force or something.
Federation Force.
Federation Force. When that one came out, that was like, yeah, I don't care about this franchise. Like, because like the the Holy Grail, the creator of it made Other M. That was his baby. That was the passion project. That was to show off how he really wanted to interpret, cutscene and emotions and
I mean,
everything in the
what's the
game.
plot of Other M good? No. Was the gameplay good? Yeah. The only bad part will have to be the first person mechanic in the game. But other than that, everything else was fine.
Yeah, but funny thing is that people were like, like, it's okay to say like, he wasn't, it didn't meet up to my standards. Like that's fine, I can understand. But like people were like that were saying, man, this game was garbage, and like this was by Team Ninja. They've never made a Metroid game in their life, let alone a first person shooter that I no actually no They did make a third-person shooter that was a la Gears of War. That game is terrible, and I don't like it. But so if the game was just a Ninja Gaiden clone with Samus as a character, which it was,
It
but
actually worked. It's just, oh well, Team Ninja
the
made the game,
first-person
so it was Team
mechanics,
Ninja's fault. It's not Nintendo's fault at all. Yeah.
yeah, the even though all the first part, the thing was you have to stand perfectly still and then just shoot enemies, and it's just like yes, because they had to implement motion control. Because guess who? Shigeru Miyamoto. Look, regardless of what he's done, he has destroyed franchises because of this. The first example was Dinosaur Planet. He turned it into a Star Fox game. Not a bad thing, but people looked at it as a Star Fox game.
Because that's what Star Fox fans wanted, right?
Yeah, and then like I played it. It was just Legend of Zelda with Star Fox and a lot of weird jank. Not horrible, but it did well enough. But Rareware is not known for doing Star Fox games. And then Star Fox Zero comes out, and it's just like the Wii U gamepad. You have to use motion controls and gyroscope to control it. And it's like, all right, is it an option to turn it off? No, it's mandatory. Oh, so when this stuff is like, it's known that whenever there's a specific gimmick in it, the console, like the Switch has those gyroscopic and motion controls as well. It's it, but it's optional. Like Mario Odyssey, a lot of the controls are optional, which is good. It's not good when it's mandatory. I think Breath of the Wild is, but for it, you rarely have to use the motion controls. So
Nope.
it's not like you have to do it for combat, like in Skyward Sword. The thing is that Nintendo is focused on a lot of just trying to do something original and less gimmicks, but at the same time that they want to play it safe, like via Mario Color Splash and just destroying Paper Mario RPG in general. All those creative characters gone because Shigeru Miyamoto says they don't fit Mario lore, even though the Thousand Year Door and the original one on the 64 had a lot of interesting new original characters that people loved, and they just kind of said no, it doesn't matter. Just put a bunch of toads in it, and it's just like this. It bothers me when it's just little things, and it's like it's okay to criticize the little things because it's not like we're just saying Nintendo sucks. We're just saying why did you do
Not
that? It's
according to those fans, because you can't disagree with them at all. And if you disagree with them, you're a fanboy. That's
yeah,
stemming from some reach of the spectrum.
yeah, and the thing is that just real quick with Other M, like with Samus's personality, yeah, I can understand why people would be upset. But this was supposed to be like, I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying, just gotta see it from the creator's point of view because this was his big project and he wanted to make a like this whole big cinematic thing. He wanted to show Samus's vulnerability. Problem with it was is how it was delivered, and it just felt forced, and it just didn't feel like people didn't feel like it was Samus because we'd never heard Samus talk. We always seen her as this badass who can,
Who
just
destroys
yes,
planets?
she go and there's no emotion, there's no reaction. She's kind of like this is just her mission. She's cold-hearted, but that's kind of what makes her cool and interesting is the mystery. And when you take away that mystery, you pretty much just make this character that was once cool just oh. So if it just focused on being another Metroid game with just um it could probably had backstory without making Samus like all this monologuing and talking about all this weird things.
Or
It
it
could
could
have
have
just
just
been visual, like
down to earth clone of Ninja Gaiden with plot elements. You just going for point A, point B, flipping around, getting whatever you got to get.
yeah, if you take all the dialogue out of the cutscenes, it'll probably be more cinematic and more interesting, and that probably would have made people speculate. And even if there is no real mystery of what's going on in the scene, it gives that people that more open-ended conversation to talk about the game rather than just like, oh, Samus is just a big fat baby that listens to Adam for everything. It's almost like he's a domestic, like they're like a married couple with domestic abuse because he's just like, Samus, don't use this weapon unless you're told to, and she just does. And it's just like, and that was the way of the game justifying how she's not allowed to use weapons. All of the old version, when you unlock upgrades for Samus in the original games, is finding statues. In this one, it's like Adam's like, oh, wait, you can use it now.
Yeah, they could have handled that bad better. They could have. It could have been like to where if he knows you going to that area, I was like, oh yeah, before you go, you're authorized to cut on your barrier suit. Can't
Anyway,
have you
but
burning.
before
Simple as
we're
that.
losing topic, but
But
Metroid
yeah,
Prime 4, I already knew they did nothing with this series. They were trying to build something as fast as they could, and they were like, this isn't working. So they let people know we're gonna start from the ground up. They shouldn't have even tried to do it the way they did. If like to me, I felt like Metroid 2 Samus Returns remake on the 3DS came out just despite the fact that people were playing another Metroid 2 remake. Like it's way too coincidental that a game that comes out that's a remake of 2 right when a fan made one that was in like what 5 years, 10 years development comes out of nowhere. Like you can tell,
yeah.
like they did some crunching. They pushed this game, and maybe it was just coincidence that by the time it was released, like the guy just happened to finish it when they were on development of it. But it just
Now
like
I
it's
can
way
have a
too
field
coincident.
day with Sam's return,
It
but
just
that's not the topic of the matter. The point being is,
Metroid Prime 4. That's what I was saying is that this game was, I want to say that it was never touched. They just recently were like, oh shit, we got a Metroid 4, Prime 4 game. People were expecting that. Yeah, about that. We're not happy with the product. Please bear with us as we continue to make it. Like,
I mean, if you're not gonna do anything with it, then
no, but what I'm
just
saying
say.
is that they want people to think that they're doing something with it. They want to make people think that they had an engine, that they had a game like somewhat in the works and it was too buggy because nothing, not even a cinematic trailer of just Samus walking into the shot and just turns back and just says Metro Prime
Or a
4. It was just a title
screenshot of
drop.
Sam's doing something, not nothing.
It If it was really something, there would have been more than that. You don't just drop a title. Like no cutscene, no audio, no teaser whatsoever, just a title drop. It's cheap. It's a cheap marketing tactic. And it's just like I want to even if it was just a cinematic cutscene with no gameplay, at least it would have been something to let me know like, "Oh, you invested a lot of animators and that cost money. That's production value. You're working on something."
Oh, you threw a logo together and put some audio on that.
That's not, yeah, like if it was at least
Congratulations.
like something. We don't even know what this one's going to be about. I know that the mystery of Metroid Prime is exploration, but maybe like show off concept art, something.
When you
Throw
had a
people a
trailer for
bone.
Prime, you had a trailer for Prime 2 and Prime 3. Besides the name drop, you actually had a random snippet of gameplay. Samus doing something. Even if it wasn't going to be the final product, you could have showed something.
Yeah,
But the fact that you don't have no footage or anything, that just says you have nothing. You
because
probably most likely focusing on everything else, and now you had to show something. Your investors will get in on you.
yeah, that's another thing. What people like? Do you think just Nintendo's made out of money that they can just? Oh, sorry, my microphone came off, muted. But like I was saying is that do you really think like they have investors and everything to Nintendo doesn't have money in the bank to keep them alive for as long as you think. Just because you saw something that said Nintendo has $4 billion to make, like Yeah, but they gotta pay employees. There's gonna be time like that money's gonna go down real. $1 billion is nothing for a multi-million-dollar company. You know, if
Especially if you had to develop everything from the ground up, unless you're using an engine like Unreal or something else.
yeah, and people are saying that they got Retro Studios starting to work on it, and it's just like, well, if that's like Retro Studios has a good track record of making decent games for Nintendo. All they could have just said that like Retro Studios working on something, and if Retro Studios confirmed it, like if they were open ended about it, we're at an age where you can't hide like companies are finding it really really hard to hide secrets. Either you're a really obscure indie company that just made a game out of the blue, even then people know about your development. Like people expect want to see at least a smidge of something. Even big like projects from Sony and Microsoft. And the thing is, Microsoft hasn't released anything from their announcement games from previous E3s, and it's showing. There's a lot of games that were supposed to come out that aren't out. But with Sony, at least the games they've recently announced have come out. We've seen stuff like Last of Us 2. May not be the best game, may not even be your favorite, but we saw something of it. It may not be representative of the final product, but it's something that, oh, to expect. Like, we got an idea what it's going to be.
Pretty
Like, even
much. Can you give us something simple?
something to
It could
work
be a
with.
CG trailer, something.
Yes.
Because they're Death Stranding.
Because, yeah.
Now, I love Lover Boy Hideo Kojima, but we have no gameplay.
We have no combat gameplay. That's the thing. We have just a bunch of people walking around in in-game cinematics. While it looks cool, what does that mean? How am I gonna play this? But he's
Well,
showing
then
more.
be
But
patient.
he's showed more stuff than anything. The game's been announced like a while back, but we're
It's
seeing stuff.
something instead of a title drop.
Like Sony is putting all of their like stops on Hideo Kojima's game. It's a PS4 exclusive. That game, whether it's going to be good or bad, Sony is saying, you know what, we have enough confidence. Let's give this man all the money we need. Because it's Hideo freaking Kojima. Like, Sony says that for Hideo, like, Kojima left Konami. Somebody that would leave a video game company would be struggling, even if they're a really good developer. Not Hideo Kojima. He created Metal Gear Solid. He's pretty much his own, like, and he could have gone to any company, but Sony picked him up, and it's pretty much funding. They like look how much like actual like actors he has in this game. I'm not saying the game's gonna be good because of that. I'm just saying look how much Sony's investing in this one game from Hideo Kojima,
Yeah,
and then look at Nintendo with their own IPs. They released Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, and they probably thought that was gonna last people for a long time. But no, people want to see your other games, Nintendo. People want to see games you've abandoned because, dis, unlike Sony and in Microsoft, you have games that been around for years that people want to see new games of. You have all the like tools at your hand disposal. People want to see things like Banjo Kazooie in Smash. They want to see the stuff that you can do and you wouldn't have any repercussions.
Discord kind of flubbed on my end
Yeah, it's
first.
but for me, I want Nintendo to succeed, and I want and for as for PlayStation 4, whatever games come out, I'm gonna play whatever I have because I already have the system. PC, same thing. I just want these like if I have these three consoles, I want exclusives from them that I can't get on any other console. Because if I can get a game on PC, Switch, and PS4, I'm gonna probably get it on PC. You need to give me a reason to have this console. The Switch has Smash Brothers. Oh, sorry, I'm burping, a little gassy. Switch has Smash Brothers, Breath of the Wild, and Odyssey. For me, that's good. For PS4, I have some third-party games that I have. The Crash Reignite trilogy, um, Spyro. I still need to get my hands on Spyro. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is coming out. That looks interesting. Bloodborne. You know,
That's
but
Final Fantasy 15, Persona 5.
Persona 5, yes. A Persona 5 alone, man. Whoo, that was a good. That's when you know you like when I beat that game. I said to myself, "Man, it's great." I knew if I bought an Xbox One, I would have felt like crap. And it's just like, and people with Spider Man. Spider Man looks fun. Like even people on Xbox are like, yeah, no, they got it, they did it. Like, do you have Spider Man Nintendo? No. Do you have Spider Man Xbox? No. Do you have Spider Man PC? No. All right, because people love Spider Man, and it's a great game too. It could have been bad.
Because of some puddles of water.
Oh yeah, see, but like, but I'm like, and the thing is, we're not saying that people that criticize that are Nintendo fans hating other things. It's just that they happen to be the loudest ones. When it comes to criticizing other consoles, it's usually people who, if you like go back on what what they're into, it turns out like they have a history of just loving Nintendo games, which is not a bad thing. But it's just like we know you have a bias. Just admit it, you know? Don't be the one that's just like, no, I just care about the quality of game. No, you don't. You care about
Nope.
Nintendo
Yeah.
games being better than others. It's because people have this weird mentality that their console has to be good. Other like, it's okay if you hear like if somebody says the Switch sucks, don't let that get to you. And if it does, just remember if you have a Switch, just play like if you, it's nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's not gonna matter. Play your games,
Yeah,
enjoy
yeah,
them.
it ain't gonna matter if they just say, "Oh, Switch sucks." Oh, okay. No, you don't even need to waste your time with such an individual. Now, only thing I'm trying to say is,
If you want to have a proper discussion about the negativity of what Nintendo's doing, let's have
then you
that
gotta
discussion.
address what they're doing,
Yeah,
but you can't have that biased if they do something wrong.
like
I mean, because I
yeah,
grew up with Nintendo too. I want Nintendo to succeed. I don't want, for Christ's sakes, I don't want Wii.
yeah. And you know what's funny? I didn't realize that I had a friend when the Wii generation was out. I had a PS3 and my friend had a Wii, and it's just like, oh my, like he wasn't hard, like he wasn't like, oh, why would you play it on this one? But like he was adamant with Nintendo, and it was fine, you know. Like the games I wanted to play were on PS3 and Xbox 360, and the Wii has the games, but overall, the Wii wasn't a console like I needed to keep. The only game I really loved playing on it was No More Heroes and oh, No More Heroes 2.
Yeah,
I'm a niche person. I like niche games, and the more I can find these niche games on whatever console, mostly the Japanese ones, like any Suda 51 game, if I can get my hands on it, and it's not like Killer is Dead, Shadows of the Damned, anything that was from Suda 51 wasn't on a Nintendo console, so I was wasting my time if I got a Nintendo console. So if these games that are interesting to me, not because of the gameplay, not because of the graphics, just because it interests me for whatever reason, maybe it's just the art style and everything. If it's not on the Nintendo, to me the Nintendo's going to be the weaker console because it doesn't have the games I want. But the Wii did have No More Heroes. That was kind of it though. I'm a bit like
and people have to keep in mind that just if someone is criticizing your console with no merit, then
that's a
that's
different
just
thing.
them speaking. It means nothing.
They're trying to rile you up.
The issue is when a person has a valid criticism, but you don't want to address the valid criticism. You just want to push it to the side.
Yeah, because you think that this person is just trying to attack the console for the sake of it, but the person's just trying to have a conversation. People like to interact with each other. Sometimes it's just an interesting, like it's fun to have disagreeing things. It's fun to be like, wait a minute, you like something? Like I've had not necessarily debates, but just arguments on whether or not why do you like this thing? Well, I don't know. It's cool, I guess. Why do you like that thing? It's just a conversation thing. It's just
Let
human
me tell you
interaction.
about your taste in waifus.
Yeah, people like to talk mess about waifus, but it's all in good fun. It only gets weird when you know they start getting real. Like they're almost like you actually insulted somebody like who was in a car accident. They don't talk to them about what you don't know what they've been through. Whoa, dude, like chill. I didn't. Where did that come from? But same thing with Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft, even Sega. Sega's still around. There are some hardcore Sega fans, especially with the Sonic fandom. But even the Sonic fandom knows when to criticize something. Oh man, like they want Sonic to succeed, but they will like. I saw it. I saw it. I was actually really surprised. When Sonic Forces came out, I thought people were going to defend that one left and right. But man, everyone was just like, like they were. It was like, this is not bad.
It's trying
It's
to
just
be generational,
disappointing.
but it's not.
Yes, Mania was the one that everybody was like, wow, this is a great game, and there were still people trying to like nod off like, oh, I don't see what the big deal of Sonic is. And like, well, you never will. It's like I can tell. Like, you want to know how you can find a Nintendo fan if they don't like Sonic, regardless of if it's good a game or not. They always bring up Sonic '06 and how it was a bad game. Like the Sonic fans know. They know.
Yeah, but you can say Sonic go to like '06, but I can say Hotel Faces.
Hotel Mario.
So
Yeah, it's
Wand of Gambling. I know y'all want to forget get those games sold so much, but
some people
if I
only.
can't forget '06, you're not gonna forget Wand of Gambling.
Yeah, like Sonic Mania was pretty much their healing. That was like the game that Sonic fans needed. They needed that one. And 3D fans are just I like 3D games. I like the Sonic Adventure games, but the 2D one is something that we really needed regardless of, as a Sega fan and a childhood Sonic fan, Sonic Mania is what that community needed. And it was made and I like that by the people for the people, by the mania for the mania. This was fans that made a Sonic game. That's
It's
so
like
cool.
someone could actually.
Sega showed that somebody that's very passionate about games that they hacked the game. Like they had to hack these games. That means they had to hack ROMs of it. That means they have copies that weren't originally owned by them in order to make these games. And Sega said, "This is cool. Let's do that." And regardless if somebody says, "Well, that's not how it exactly happened," it's like if somebody makes a 3D Zelda game clone and it looks decent, and people are like, somebody made like a hybrid
Simon
3D
Tomley
2D
is a prominent hacker for the says for the Sonic community. So anyone who tries to tell you elsewise is like you said, and then like a Nintendo fan that's still fighting the war from back then, even though like Sega's not doesn't even have a console on the race,
yeah,
but
it
you'll
is
still
so
try to
weird.
argue to me the Super Nintendo is better than the Genesis, like all that stuff.
Yeah, and for me, the only thing is there are three things that I'll never respect Nintendo for. The way they handled YouTube monetization. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That one's bad. If any, like, if no nobody remembers that, there was a time where if you wanted to do a review on Nintendo games or make videos on it, Nintendo had had this thing where it's like you had to be part of the partnership to do videos on them. If not, you get a strike on your channel. And it's just like people are like, "Oh, this is a good thing. You don't want people to like get footage of." And it's like, dude, no, that's not how it works. Because then what ends up happening is that reviewers, like the people from the normal boots or people that are very adamant in the Nintendo community,
Well,
are just
Ed, you
going to
got
give
to
high
understand.
reviews. It's like
You got to understand that Nintendo needs money, and they have full right to make money for their IPs and whatnot.
if and it's like
But
it's
we never said they
yeah.
don't.
So what ends up happening is you get all these reviewers.
That summarizes the bias in a nutshell.
And then what would happen is that
I give a criticism, you jump back at me and say, "No, you're wrong. You're wrong." And no matter what you say, you'll always be Nintendo's right.
yeah,
But
like
if you continue that behavior, then we'll just go back to how it was with the Wii U, to where the Wii U had a massive drought. There was horrible advertisement.
all those
Luckily,
shovelware
Nintendo
games
learned from their mistakes. But you know how Nintendo learned from their mistakes?
because they failed.
That and the community that constantly criticized them for the mistakes that they've made.
Yeah,
And I'm
and
sure Microsoft is doing like a similar job, to where they took a massive L for this console generation as we speak. But what are they doing
sorry.
now? They actually learned.
Mm,
Now I don't know what's gonna happen the next. That's yet to be found. But the point still remains: they're listening to their criticisms. They're not trying to be arrogant and jokingly say, "Ha ha, we're making money." The fans don't know exactly what we're talking about at all.
yeah, but the Nintendo, Microsoft has a bigger can of worms for me. They almost got Platinum shut down because of Scalebound. That right there is the biggest crime for me with Microsoft of this generation.
Yep.
The, for the Xbox 360 generation, they took away all my friends. Everybody had an Xbox 360, man. And I told you know what's funny? I actually told one kid I was like I was one of those kids who had to get in a fight with Xbox, which one's better. And I told a kid, hey, we may not have. I was real honest. We may not have games this year, but next year, watch. And then that year, a bunch of games came out. And in the end, the PS3 did end up outselling the Xbox 360, but the damage was already done for that. You can't really do anything about it. It technically won the race after the race was over, so that doesn't count. That's like saying like, "Oh, I ran a lot more miles than you." Yeah, but the contest was already over, dude. So yeah, the PS3 flawed, but overall, it's a good console. It has those games. It has a lot of those JRPGs that a lot of
Well,
people know.
before they stopped supporting it, it had a good. Let's
Yeah,
just say that. I wish you could say that about the Vita, though.
yeah. But the Vita is a whole different like beast of whatever happened to that. It's doing well in Japan. It's just not doing
And
well in
so
general.
yeah, you notice that Microsoft and PlayStation. Nintendo fans who disagree with us, please just consider that. If we can criticize Microsoft, we can criticize Sony, we could even criticize PC.
Valve
What makes
especially.
you think that your platform is immune from criticism?
Because look, at the end of the day, the games we care about just have to be fun. And they all then that cut to they always quote that Reggie said, if the game's not fun, why even bother? Well, because some games aren't considered fun, but they're considered interesting. Like nobody plays Killer 7 and has fun. That was like a game that I was interested in because of how weird it was. It was cool, and it was like, wow, that blew my mind. And it was on a Nintendo console too. But that idea of a game being just fun for the sake of fun, it just makes it diminish all like those interesting experimental games. Like games need to get out of their comfort zone in order for them to like have these crazier ideas. Most games I ended up enjoying steered away from average gameplay. Look at Devil May Cry. It doesn't hold your hand with the combat system. It embraces its difficulty and learning curve. And with the if the game didn't do that, we wouldn't have this crazy game known as Devil May Cry 3. You know, with Devil May Cry 2, it's a whole like that's the stray sheep. But Devil May Cry 5, if it doesn't feel like 3 or 4 in a sense where it's like, whoa, this is like crazy, all the stuff you can do, and it's like balls to the wall difficult. I can understand them doing accessible, saying accessible for new players, but it kind of just destroys what made those games memorable. The DMC remake is an example of what not to do to make the game great. Like,
In similar fashion, I know I'm sounding like a broken Bob box at this point, but in similar fashion, DMC flopped.
yeah,
And when they wanted to come back to the Devil May Cry series, they weren't going to make a sequel to DMC. They took the credit. It's like they tried to aggressively remaster DMC, but that flop too. Because you know what? Instead of people purchasing that, they would import an older game that was actually polished, and the fan base enjoy it with a passion, despite the fact that it was, even though they had like physical copies in Japan, people bought the physical copies. That's saying something.
yeah,
It's like they have the definitive edition at GameStop and Walmart and all these other places, but the fan base didn't touch it at all. They would rather import a game than mess with the reboot. So in essence, the Devil May Cry community, they delivered a message to Capcom: we don't want the reboot. This is what we want. We want you to succeed. So here are our criticisms, and here's what you can do to make it better. And now we have Devil May Cry 5.
yeah. I just wish people would stop acting like Nintendo's like a sick little cancer child from the Make a Wish Foundation, who whenever like let's say like if like imagine this little kid from the Make a Wish Foundation out of the stadium saying, "I'm sorry, but Metroid Prime 4 is gonna be delayed," and then it's just like we're gonna start again, and then everyone starts clapping. It's just like that's what they're seeing, but it's just like it's a multi-million-dollar corporation telling you, "Hey, remember that game that we said we were gonna work on that we gave almost little to nothing other than a title, a drop? Yeah, we don't know what we're doing, so expect delays." Honestly, if they were just real like that, people would be more like. I just kind of wish people would be more real with it. People are like saying, "Oh, you know, we can't. It can't be helped." It's like, yeah, it can. They made a the Metroid 2 remake on the 3DS like nothing. To make it perfect, yes, it's gonna be a while. And I think the problem is with a lot of the games comes with the fact that engines improve, tech is growing rapidly faster and faster. Like a game that takes 10 years to make can change overnight. Like Kingdom Hearts was probably going to be for the PS3. It, by then, the PS4 is already out, and then they got to make sure that everything works on this new console because higher ups are probably saying, look, that new console's coming out. This needs to be on here. And that leads to delays. Like with Persona 5 and Final Fantasy 15, which was originally supposed to be like Final Fantasy 13 point something. It was supposed to be a weird title, but it ended up being a standalone. But at least we saw something of it, you know. With for me with Nintendo, Prime 4 is probably the one thing we shouldn't really be easy on them for, because they neglected this series for the longest time. When it Metroid Prime 3 came out on the Wii, all right, near the end of its, kind of a little bit in the middle of the Wii life cycle.
And then
Anything,
other M came out like what? Maybe it. Well, other M came out, but we already know how Baco went.
yeah. Hold on, sorry.
And then whenever we have the only closest thing we had to an actual game was pretty much DMC'd because it's a game actually making a remake of this game that everyone wants to play.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
yeah. Prime 4 just feels weird. It feels like when it was announced, there wasn't, for me, there was no hype, because it was like, okay. It just felt
It's
like
like we know you're working
they
on it,
just
but could you show us some gameplay or maybe trailer?
it just didn't feel genuine. It just felt like, well, we need to give them something. Like, there are a lot of games that were supposed to be like these hits. Like, how many people talk about Pikmin 3?
Oh, not that much.
But you would think like a game that people like is memorable enough to get a Smash rep would have, like, the third game would have had like a significant, value. Like, it would have been like this, not necessarily 10 out of 10 game, because the Pikmin games aren't 10 out of 10s, but they're cult classics.
Yep.
They have all these IPs that they can do whatever with, and we have to.
No, no. If you want to talk about age when it comes to Nintendo's IPs, can you tell me the last time they made them an F-Zero game?
Oh yeah, don't even get me started on that. They're never gonna make an F Zero game. They're fully, and that's the thing. They're cheeky about it too. And I'm not saying like Nintendo directly, the corporate. It's usually the marketing teams, like especially Nintendo of USA, Nintendo of America. Sorry, I don't know why I said it like that. Those guys, they don't care. They don't care. They know they're gonna, like, because they know, they're fully aware that people are going to buy the game regardless if it's good or not.
Yep. And if they keep up that attitude, you'll bite them back quickly. I mean, they're not immune to arrogance. You can ask Microsoft this console generation, and you can ask Sony the generation before with the PlayStation 3. They both know that. Well,
Yeah.
Sony, I don't know, because they kind of getting bad back there, but I don't know what they're gonna do. We'll just have to see the next generation. Are they gonna actually deliver, or are they just gonna drop the bolt? And history just repeats itself.
Look, all I want is for Nintendo to give us the thing that everybody wants, and that's Super Mario Brothers 2 HD. I'm sorry I had to do that. Donkey joke, everybody. But no,
No,
it's
no. You mean we the best sequel of all time? We need Hotel Mario 2.
Hotel. Oh man, that'd be interesting. No, but it's I'm okay with. It's okay. So I don't care if another Zelda or Mario game comes out to the next console generation. That's fine. But like, you have, like, if you made an F Zero game for the Switch, do you know how many? You know how crazy you would like make? Just look at your Smash Brothers roster and say, we need a game of this character.
I
Or
mean, you can give us thousand Kirby games and 1,000 Fire Emblem games, but yeah,
yeah, and that's what sucks, because for me, I like Advance Wars. I like Days of Ruin. That was my favorite one. I'm not gonna see anything of that though. But what does that matter? Nobody
Nope.
cares. And that game's obscure. I don't know about that. That game is lame. It's not Fire Emblem. It's like, well, what's your favorite Fire Emblem game? Awakening. Oh, okay. All right. It's Awakening. Everybody loves Crom. I'm not saying he's a bad character. I'm just saying, like, that's the impression that I get.
There you go. You're doing the criticism again.
What? I don't care. Nobody like the every game on the Wii U that wasn't a Nintendo game was good. Wonderful 101 wasn't a Nintendo game, that was platinum. Bayonetta 2 was a platinum game. It just happened to be exclusive for Nintendo because nobody else wanted it. But that's not Nintendo's. That's not. See, somebody will say like, "Oh, well, if Nintendo didn't pick it up, you wouldn't have Bayonetta." Yes, but Bayonetta 2 is out, so I'm thinking platinum. I could care less about like Nintendo because they didn't make the game, they didn't write it, they didn't make the combat. They just said, "Hey, make the game." And they gave them the money for it, and that's all I'm going to thank them for. But in terms of Bayonetta, I'm going to look at platinum, the real people who made it. So if I'm not going to give that point to any console, anything like, I wouldn't give it to Sony, I wouldn't give it to Microsoft, I wouldn't have given it to Valve. I give it to Platinum. You know, people always talk about what's their favorite consoles, what's their favorite companies. They don't even. How many people can actually tell you their favorite in-house, third-party developer? You know, there's a lot of good ones out there. But most people will
Some of
look at,
them been
say
around.
it as Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. And it's just like, no. If Team Ninja makes a good game, that's Team Ninja making a good game. If Platinum makes a good game, it's a good game. If they happen to be an exclusive, I'm not giving that point to the person who holds the exclusive. I'm giving the point to the game itself. If Metroid Prime 4 ends up being a good game, you know, I'll hold my tongue. I'll be like, you know what? Yeah. Hey, good. But
It'd be worth the wait.
there's a lot of games that we've been waiting for that never get a release. And if they do get a release, they end up being super disappointing. Duke Nukem Forever. Not for me personally, because I liked it. Final Fantasy 15. It still disappointed people. Although, I don't think any of them even remembered when it was first announced. Persona.
Man, something tells you they just complain just to be complaining. Because it's usually when it comes,
Like,
oh, this is bad.
Persona 5 is the only game that came out that had like a long development cycle, and it just feels right, you know? It just feel like you look at all the style, the menus, the characters, the graphics, the way the art style specifically of the graphics, how all the things look, and it's just like you say to yourself, man, this is great. Like, and the game, when you beat it, you're satisfied. That's when you know the game was worth waiting. Odyssey and Breath of the Wild shared that. Well, mostly Odyssey because I've seen the ending and stuff like that, and I can see people being excited for it. I haven't beaten Breath of the Wild, but it has its merit of being a
Gotta
good
get that
game.
Master Sword.
The wait, being worth the wait. Prime 4 might have that, but you can and it's not a remake, so I'm giving it a little bit more leeway. But yeah, you're right. The delay thing didn't need to be addressed. They didn't. Honestly, they didn't even have to announce it. They did. Don't know why, but they did. Because really, I don't think anybody was really fully paying attention to the Prime development.
The
Maybe they
stockholders
were
were
just
though.
getting too many questions from outside, like journalists or companies and being like, "Hey, how's that game going?" You know, maybe some people are asking about it. Maybe they cracked under pressure. Like,
It's like, we don't got
like they went to a
nothing.
party, they smoked a joint, they only took one puff, and all of a sudden they're freaking out. Like they're not even fully high, but they're just like walking home. And it's like, okay, don't freak out. Nobody knows you're high. And then somebody says, "Hi," and it's like, "No, I'm not." Whoa, dude, what's the problem? And then they just kind of like confess, and they start crying on the floor. And it's just like nobody gave them, like, it almost felt like it came out of nowhere. And that's why it feels like, that's why to me it's just like I don't feel any sympathy towards it. Like, oh, big deal. You have to start again. Didn't even know you were working on it because that title was so vague.
Well,
Just three things, Nintendo, from me from now on. One, if something gets enough recognition, a game that wants to be port, just port it. Just port Mother 3. That's like the biggest one. Just do it. Just put it on the put a virtual shop on the Switch and get those games that are like your best sellers from that previous generation. Bring it onto the Switch. You're not gonna be disappointed. You're gonna make a lot of money. Like, people are giving you ideas to make money, and it's just like you're saying, nah. Two, fan projects. Leave them alone. And unless, of course, they actually ask for money, leave them alone. If they're free for anybody to play and just pick up, leave them alone. Just do it.
yep. But we can go on
Yeah.
hours on.
We need to start.
Dude.
We need to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was pretty much the big Nintendo rant, but this is coming from people who don't hate Nintendo. Rather, we just want to see Nintendo do well, but also let people like feel confident to say, call them out on some BS, you know, because they're multi-million-dollar companies. They don't care about you. If you died, Reggie's not gonna be like, oh, and like have a moment of silence for like one of their millions of customers. Like, they're all people working a hard day and dead end job, whatever. Not dead end job, but a career. And you know, no, like, no, but nobody cares. Nobody really acknowledges them. People act like they know everybody at that company and feel like all of them are human beings. And if you don't like it, that person is going to go home starving because you didn't buy a Nintendo game. It's like,
Shit said this earlier, but I already know the usual "you not know Nintendo fan" way argument.
I never
When
said I was.
I can proudly say that I got a 64, a Super somewhere in the attic somewhere. A GameCube with a dead ACC power brick,
Yeah.
like a Wii and a Wii U, primarily used for like hack smash and whatnot. That's about it.
You see, I wouldn't even give them the time of day because it doesn't matter how big a fan you are. If you see something that doesn't feel right when a company does something, it doesn't matter if you had 30 years of Nintendo experience. It doesn't matter if you're like,
Shit got
you just bought a Switch.
so the
If you just bought a Switch and you like, let's say like you sometimes keep track of what's going on in the industry, and you say, wow, that's kind of dumb what Nintendo did. That's okay. It's not like, well, what do you know? You've only started playing games recently. Like, yeah, we all started. Genius. We weren't born out of the womb knowing how to play these games. When you see something, when it feels wrong, when you and your if you don't like the way how it's coming out, like if Square Enix does something to a franchise and it doesn't feel right, you know, people aren't gonna condemn you for calling it out. You're gonna get a lot of, but you will get backlash. You might maybe for some there maybe are some hardcore fans that'll defend. There's gonna be hardcore fans that defend any company to the death. Like there are people who defend Wendy's for God's sakes. Like that's the point we've got to where we're treating these companies like we know them. We don't know them. They don't care about us. If we died tomorrow, they're not gonna fret about it. The only time, like if I'm in mass, millions of their people died, the first people that be concerned is just everybody in general. Because it's like, oh, is that an epidemic? They're not gonna be concerned about. They're not gonna say we're sorry for all our fans who died in that weird apocalyptic rapture that happened. They don't. They're not gonna care. They're gonna go on and continue about their day. Don't treat the companies like your friends. Iwata, good man, rest in peace. Did he ever call you? No. So don't treat him like he was somebody that kept in touch with you like he was your uncle. Unless he was your uncle and he did keep in touch with you. In that case, my condolences. Which is a joke because I don't think anybody who's in the West like is blood related to Satoru Iwata.
Daddy Sakurai.
Or Sakurai, Miyamoto, Reggie. These guys never called you. They don't ask about your day. If they do, if you went to a convention, hey Reggie, it's like, oh, how you doing? Like, yeah, it's like, it's PR. They're trying. They don't care. They want to go home. If everybody had the option to make money and do nothing, they would. You think Reggie and Sakurai, Shigeru Miyamoto, you think they would continue doing this if that meant they can get paid for doing nothing? I mean, Miyamoto can retire. I think he's retired right now. But he still likes to interact because that's his company.
Yeah.
But when it comes to just human interaction, like saying, don't treat them like they're like blood related. You die for them. It comes off weird. So yeah, just if Nintendo does something wrong, it's okay. Call them out. Because there are a lot more worse companies. We're not saying they're the worst because of it. We're saying treat them all equally. Because they treat you as equally as any other company. Somebody that they're just trying to sucker in to get your money. And we're dumb enough to buy all these products because we've made some not so great decisions in life. But that's why we play video games. To indulge in that terrible decision. Could have bought a better car, but we chose to buy a PC and a PS4 because who cares?
Can we just have, for those who actually think so, please keep in mind again,
We're dying.
there is nothing wrong with liking platform choice. Just have a solid conversation with no bias in it.
Yeah. And if it does get heated, just remember it's not worth it. If you're really gonna go out of your way to prove your point, just be like, you know what, because it's not like that person's gonna go home and have a paparazzi full wow, how does it feel to defeat a Nintendo fan at their own game? And it's like, well, it was easy. That guy, it's not a competition. It doesn't have to be. And honestly, the people that comes from hanging out with people in real life too, because on the internet, people are just gonna say the dumbest stuff. But I've went to conventions and you play some Smash, you talk to people, you disagree, you agree, and it feels natural. It works itself out. And if you feel like these things are usually happening, just take a break from the internet and just, play the games that make you happy. You don't have to spend your whole day trying to make an argument why the game's good. Just remember, if somebody's, if it feels like an argument that you don't want to be a part of, don't be in it. But if you want to enjoy it, if you want to get in on it, As long as you're cool, calm, collected, everybody can have a good time, despite talking mess about everybody's company.
Well, well, with that said, I think the next podcast I'm gonna leave the topics up to you.
Yeah, I think I can come up with some. It'll probably be a little bit more less ranty like this. We went way off the deep end, but this is just stuff we've been, it just comes to us. Like I've thought about that. Nintendo and stuff. They're not a bad company, but they just do stuff I never liked. That's kind of good getting that stuff off my chest. But at the same time, I'm still playing Smash Brothers. Like, I don't know.
I'm
Like,
still having fun with Breath of the Wild.
yeah, I don't know why. Like, somebody's gonna, and that's the thing. Nobody's gonna listen to this. Like, if somebody hears our thing, they're not gonna listen to the end where we're like, yeah, Nintendo's still a great company. But yeah, I'll try to focus. I don't know. Maybe I'll pull up some topics. Maybe something that's. I'll try to look up some news topics. That's what we'll try to focus on too, so we don't rant on like this. It's just maybe look up something that happened in the news and just kind of talk about that on one point, but then go into stuff. And once this channel gets bigger, we'll start doing near end questions that you can leave in the comments and everything. But everything's still a work in progress from us, so be patient with us. We gotta start this podcast from scratch. We got Metro Studios working on the new podcast.
Gotta get new sound too. But anyway,
All right. Yeah, I'm Ed Tom, 23.
and I'm mean of Kaze-kan podcast.
Yes, it's that late that you missed. You just sounded like you were dying when you were saying Mean Bug.
Yeah.
Yeah, we recorded this one really late, but we know we love games, we love anime, and we love our fans if we have any. All right. We'll see you next time.
Yep.